What if I told you there was a drug you could take right now to help you live longer and healthier, even if you're already healthy? We might have the answer to that. It's a drug called rapamycin. So rapamycin comes from an island in Chile called Easter Island. And just to give you some background, there is a volcano there that is believed to have some sort of healing powers. So in 1964, there was a medical expedition from Canada, and they went all the way to Easter Island. And they were basically giving some care to some of the residents there, but they also brought home some soil samples from the volcano there. So there's a good chance they probably heard about some of these spiritual healing powers, and they wanted to see what was in the soil. And they found that this soil was saturated with a lot of this antifungal agent. And this antifungal is produced by a bacteria in the soil called Streptomyces hygroscopicus. So the guy that was studying this ended up naming that bacteria rapamycin. When he first started experimenting with rapamycin, he found that it could actually cure athlete's foot. And that alone is a pretty big accomplishment. But people found that rapamycin has a lot more uses than that, specifically how it affects our immune system. So in 1999, it was actually approved by the FDA to help with transplant patients accepting new organs. Because in these patients, rapamycin acted as an immunosuppressant, so their immune system didn't target this new organ as much. Now, rapamycin is also used as a coating for arterial stents, because it can help prevent that blood from clotting again. Now, rapamycin just kept getting more attention, and in 2007, an analog of rapamycin called everolimus was actually approved to help treat a type of kidney cancer. Now, what is the reason that rapamycin has so many diverse uses? Now, one of the reasons that rapamycin is so useful is that it actually slows our process of cellular division and growth. And it does this by acting on this intracellular protein complex called mTOR. Now, this is important because inhibiting mTOR has been shown to be really important for longevity and helping you live longer. Now, the other cool thing about mTOR is that it's something that's been biologically conserved. That means it has survived the natural selection in pretty much all classes and species of organisms. So mTOR is found in pretty much all life forms, like yeast, fruit flies, worms, and even humans. Now, this drug, rapamycin, actually inhibits mTOR. Now, what exactly does mTOR do? Well, the job of mTOR is basically to balance our need to grow and for our cells to reproduce based on the nutrients that are available. So if we have more food and more nutrients, then mTOR is going to be activated, and it's going to be more pro-growth. If we have less food and less nutrients, then it's going to be deactivated. And now we're going to have our cells start to recycle. Now, the cool thing here is that if we're able to turn down mTOR, at least temporarily, studies are showing that that can actually help us live longer. And there have been a lot of studies on mammals with this drug rapamycin showing that it can actually extend lifespan. So this 2009 study was published in Nature, and the researchers gave these mice that were already pretty old some rapamycin. So the mice in the study were about 600 days old, so that would be the equivalent of a human in their 60s. But even given at this later stage in their life, it boosted their remaining life expectancy by about 28% in males and 38% in females. And the authors even said that rapamycin can help people live longer by potentially slowing death from cancer or slowing the effects of aging, or even doing both. Now, you might be wondering, like, how relevant is this if this was a study on mice and other mammals but not actually on humans? Well, there has been no other molecule that has ever increased lifespan in a mammal. So that is a big deal. What's even cooler is every single experiment that has done by different labs using this rapamycin has all shown consistent results, that these animals are living longer. Now, another thing to note is a lot of these headline-grabbing molecules that claim to help you live longer do not have repeated results. So one example of this is resveratrol. In 2006, there was a study that found that the skin of these grapes and also red wine had this molecule called resveratrol, and it can actually extend lifespan in overweight mice. Now, this led to countless news articles and even a 60 Minutes episode about it. And you still have people now talking about how red wine or even a glass or two of red wine might be good for you because of this resveratrol that you get. But the problem is, other labs and other experiments have not been able to reproduce these findings. And especially when these tests are subjected to the same rigorous methods that rapamycin has been subjected to. And these are the methods that are tested by the National Institute of Aging program to test anti-aging methods. And when resveratrol was held to these testing methods, then it was shown to not extend lifespan. But rapamycin was. And this is true of every single other anti-aging supplement. including nicotinamide riboside, which has also been pretty popular. Now, before you get too excited about rapamycin, just know that there still hasn't been any studies on humans. We have repeated studies on yeast, on mice, on fruit flies, and in all of these studies, it's been shown to extend lifespan. But we haven't had a study on humans yet. But in all of these groups to increase lifespan, they all involve turning down that mTOR complex. So what that's showing is there could be some benefit to turning down mTOR, at least temporarily. Now, what's another way to turn down mTOR? Well, that would be intermittent fasting. And it kind of goes along with the same old concept, reducing how many calories we are eating in general will help us live longer, because most people simply eat too much. But when you reduce the amount of nutrients available to a cell, that will trigger some innate pathways, and it'll improve the cell's response to stress and also improve how efficient its metabolism is. And all of this is still related to mTOR. Now, for example, one of these innate pathways that gets activated when we have less food is AMPK, or AMP kinase. So AMPK is activated both when we have lower amounts of nutrients, but also when we're exercising. And what AMPK does is basically this low fuel indicator in our body. And when it's activated, it prompts our cells to seek alternate sources of energy or fuel. And one way it does this is it stimulates the production of new mitochondria. Mitochondria, you might remember, is the powerhouse of our cell. So when this AMPK is activated, it prompts our cells to replace our old damaged mitochondria and replace them with newer and fresher mitochondria, which in turn helps us produce more ATP, or energy. Now, it's not just important for our mitochondria to recycle like this. It's important for our cells to recycle like this in general, and that's something called autophagy. And this is what happens when mTOR is shut down. So a drop in nutrients, specifically a drop in amino acids, causes mTOR to shut down. Now, instead, cells are going to start breaking down proteins into smaller amino acid complexes, and they're also going to be scavenging for other materials to build new proteins. So this is literally a form of cellular recycling. Now, autophagy is really important. If you don't have autophagy, you're going to die. And it's done by something called lysosomes. Now, what also happens during autophagy is you get removal of these things called aggregates. Aggregates are basically clumps of these damaged proteins that start accumulating. Now, getting rid of this is important because having more aggregates has been linked to neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And also having impaired autophagy is linked with these neurodegenerative diseases. This study found that mice that lack a specific autophagy gene actually end up getting neurodegeneration within 2 to 3 months. So we know that autophagy is important, but as we get older, our autophagy starts to decline. And this is one of the biggest drivers that causes us to start aging and have neurodegeneration as we're getting older. Now, this is where the big question comes. Should people who are already healthy be taking this rapamycin to help extend their lifespan and prevent a lot of these issues? Because now the problem is, if someone is already healthy and you give them a supplement, what if they start having an adverse reaction to it or a lot of side effects? Now that healthy person is potentially getting damaged because of the supplement that you've been giving them. Now, this is something that we really have to ask ourselves, that knowing the benefits of rapamycin and that it extends lifespan in every single study that it's been done in, but it hasn't been done in humans. But knowing those benefits, does that outweigh the risks of having some potential side effects from it? Now, some people also fear that since it's given for transplant patients, and in those patients, it's more of an immune suppressant, that what if my immune system starts getting suppressed if I start taking it? Well, there are some more studies on humans showing that it might be more of an immune modulator and not just an immune suppressant. So this study from 2014 found that the rapamycin analog everolimus actually enhanced immune response in people who were elderly in response to a vaccine. The difference here was these group of patients had a moderate to high dose every week. So every week they were given a dose of this and then they were given a week off. But transplant patients are given a lower dose of rapamycin every day. So what the studies are showing is that it's kind of a dose-dependent response. It's not just either an immune enhancer or an immune suppressant. It really depends on the dose. And what the studies are showing is that if you take a small dose of it daily, it acts more as an immune suppressant. But if you take a moderate to high dose once a week, then it actually enhances your immune system. Now again, we need more studies on humans to know for sure. But luckily, there are more studies being done. So right now, there's some studies being done on dogs, and them getting this rapamycin dose, a moderate dose, once a week. And the results so far are pretty promising. What the results are showing so far is that things just tend to improve. Their organs start to function better, their heart starts to function better, their systemic inflammation starts to go down. They're also finding that it can potentially improve our ability to detect and eliminate cancer cells. And they're also finding that it improves the gum and periodontal health of these dogs. Now, we don't have all the results yet, but we should have them soon. They're estimating in 2026. Now, some people are already taking this rapamycin as a cyclical thing, where they're taking it once a week at a moderate dose. One person that's pretty prominent in this is Dr. Peter Attia, and he even said that when he takes it this 1 a week dose, that it reduces a lot of the side effects as well. Now, all of this is very promising, but make sure you take it all with a grain of salt, because again, there's been no studies on humans, so we don't technically know for sure if just because it affects all these mammals a certain way that it'll affect humans the same way. So hopefully we keep getting new information on it. Have you ever been working out or going for a run and then all of a sudden you start sneezing and your nose starts dripping and everyone just looking at you like you are this disgusting person? If this sounds like it happens to you, it's a condition called exercise-induced rhinosinusitis. And most doctors will tell you that the reason that this happens is because of some inflammation in your nasal